Everyone expected Natalie to marry a CEO. She had the degree, the looks, the family legacy, a polished LinkedIn profile, and the social media photos that looked like they belonged in a magazine. Her father was a judge, her mother was a prominent attorney, and Natalie, she was on track to be a top corporate lawyer bite when he ate. So when news spread that she had gotten engaged to a janitor, people didn't whisper behind her back. They outright laughed at the office. Colleagues exchanged smirks in family dinners. Her uncles and aunts wore smug expressions. And her mother, once her biggest supporter, stopped mentioning her in charity galas altogether. But Natalie didn't care. She knew what they didn't because what they saw as a janitor. She saw as Jacob. Before we dive into this powerful journey of love, judgment, and redemption, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you've ever been doubted or judged for who you love, this story is for you. Let's get into it. Natalie had first met Jacob in the elevator. It was like almost 10 p.m. She was on her third cup of coffee, mentally reviewing notes for a client pitch. The office was nearly empty. As the elevator doors opened on the lobby floor, she stepped in, too buried in her phone to notice. Evening, a calm voice said. She looked up. Jacob stood in his work uniform, navy pants, gray polo ID badge clipped to his chest. A mop bucket sat behind him in the hallway. Evening, she replied curtly, trying to return to her phone, but the elevator jerked slightly, then stopped. The lights dimmed for a moment, then returned. But they weren't moving. I think we're stuck, Jacob said, tapping the panel. Of course we are, Natalie muttered. She tried hitting the emergency button, then pulling out her phone. No signal. Jacob leaned back calmly. Well, guess we're stuck together for a while. Natalie sighed. But as the minutes passed, the silence felt less awkward. Jacob wasn't what she expected. He wasn't flustered or awkward. He cracked dry jokes, asked about her job without sounding intimidated, and really listened by the time the doors opened 25 minutes later. She had laughed 3 times, genuinely. She hadn't done that all week. The next time she saw him, it wasn't in the elevator, was in a small coffee shop 2 blocks from her office. He was sitting by the window, reading a paperback, sipping tea. She almost walked by, but something made her turn. Hey, she said, unsure why she approached him. He looked up and smiled. Elevator girl, she chuckled. Mind if I sit? That coffee turned into a long conversation. That conversation turned into a weekend hike. That hike turned into a movie night. And soon Natalie found herself sneaking smiles during meetings, texting him during breaks, counting down the hours until she saw him again. It wasn't just that he was kind, or funny, or handsome in a rugged, easygoing way. It was that he made her feel seen, not as a resume, not as a future attorney, but as a person. When Natalie told her parents about Jacob, she expected discomfort but not outrage. A janitor, her mother said, as if she had just heard a slur. Natalie, are you out of your mind? Her father didn't speak right away, just stared. He's just temporary, she said. Right? He's who I love. That word love hit the room like thunder. They tried everything: bribes, guilt, warnings about social image and career backlash. Her uncle, a judge, even offered to set her up with someone from the governor's office. But Natalie held her ground. I don't want a trophy, she said. I want a teammate. They stopped inviting her to dinners. Family group chats went silent. Even her friends, those she thought would understand, pulled away. One of them asked, "Are you doing this to prove a point?" She wasn't. She was doing it because when she imagined her future, Jacob was in it. They moved into a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood. No valet, no concierge. Just walls filled with books, secondhand furniture, and photos of their small adventures, sunsets, dogs they met at parks. Quiet mornings in bed. Jacob still worked the janitorial shift. But there was more to him. He had a whiteboard above his desk, scribbled with sketches and numbers. On weekends, he built things in their garage, handcrafted furniture, customized shelves. Once, he surprised Natalie with a wooden jewelry box he made from scratch. "I studied architecture once," he said casually one night, 2 years. "But I dropped out when my mom got sick. Had to work." Natalie blinked. "Why didn't you?" "Go back. Life happened," he shrugged. "But I don't regret it." Still, she noticed something in his eyes, a flicker of unfinished dreams. So she started saving little by little, without telling him, because she had a plan. Months later, Natalie got the call. The firm wanted to promote her. Senior associate, bigger office, bigger salary, bigger expectations. There was just one catch. They wanted her to attend more corporate functions, meet the right people, they said, network at the right tables. And Jacob didn't fit. That image. The first time she brought him to a company gala, the whispers were instant. Men stared with pity. Women with judgment. One partner even asked him if he was Natalie's driver. Later that night, Jacob asked, "You sure I'm not hurting your career?" Natalie hesitated. The pause hurt him more than anything else. "I'll step away," he said quietly. "If I'm the weight holding you down." She shook her head, eyes glassy. "Don't you dare." But the question lingered. Could love and ambition truly coexist? Natalie didn't sleep for days. Then she made a call, and then another. She cashed in a portion of her savings, quit the promotion, took a quieter position at a smaller firm, one that paid less but valued balance more. And then, on Jacob's birthday, she blindfolded him and drove him to an empty lot on the edge of town. "What's this?" he asked, puzzled. She handed him a set of blueprints, old sketches, redrawn, refined, and ready for permit. "I showed your furniture to a friend in interior design," she said. He flipped. "And a builder friend offered to help. This could be your workshop." Jacob stared, stunned. "You believed in me when no one did," she said. "Now let me believe in you." They got married in the park under a hand-built arch, surrounded by wildflowers and a handful of people who mattered. Not one member of Natalie's family showed up. None of her old friends. But Jacob's cousin cried. His little niece ran around, throwing petals. A woman from the local bakery donated a cake. And when they said their vows, Jacob whispered, "You didn't just marry me, you rebuilt me." Jacob worked on the workshop day and night. What started as a dusty patch of land slowly became something more. With the help of a few friends and Natalie's unwavering encouragement, they laid the foundation, framed the walls, and installed lighting. He called it restored woodworks. Every piece of furniture was made by hand tables, chairs, headboards, shelves, each one signed, dated, and stamped with the words, "Built with purpose." Natalie took charge of the business side. She made a website, started an Instagram, and reached out to influencers and design blogs. It started small, just a few sales a week, but the craftsmanship was undeniable. Soon, a local home decor magazine ran a short feature on the workshop. Then, a larger blog reposted it. Then, a viral TikTok happened. Orders began pouring in. One weekend, Natalie received a letter in the mail. A wedding invitation from her cousin, Rebecca. It had been nearly 2 years since she'd seen any of her family. The envelope had a handwritten note from her mother. "We hope you'll come. Bring Jacob, okay?" Jacob raised an eyebrow when she showed it to him. "You sure you want to go?" She nodded. "I want them to see you." The wedding was extravagant. Chandeliers, a rented orchestra, rows of picture-perfect guests dressed in designer suits as soon as Natalie and Jacob stepped into the venue. The whispers began again, but this time they didn't sting. Jacob stood tall, polished, confident, with a clean gray suit and his calloused hands proudly clasped in hers. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He didn't need to. Then the bride's father, a wealthy contractor, walked past, did a double take, and said, "Wait. You're the guy who makes those wooden statement tables, right? The ones everyone's talking about?" Jacob gave a modest nod. "Those things are selling like gold dust," the man said. You're a craftsman. Respect. Natalie's mother watched from across the room. Her jaw didn't drop, but her eyes softened. Later that night, she approached Natalie in the restroom, looked at her reflection, and said quietly, I was wrong. Within another year, Restored Woodworks had a waiting list. They were featured in a national design magazine. An HGTV producer called High-End Interior Decorator offered Jacob a licensing deal to mass produce his designs. He declined. I'd rather keep it small and meaningful, he said. Each piece deserves time. Natalie's career thrived too. She began doing legal consulting for small creative startups and artisans. Her work gave her a purpose, helping dreamers protect their passion. They bought a small home with a workshop out back. Still modest, still quiet. But every corner was filled with joy. With life, Natalie no longer lived for approval. She lived for alignment. 3 years later, Natalie's father fell ill. Not critical, but enough to bring the family back together. Under one roof, Natalie and Jacob came to visit. The atmosphere was tense at first. But then Jacob sat by her father's side, asked about his health, and stayed silent as he vented. Before they left, her father said something that would stick with them forever. You didn't just marry a janitor, he said. You married a builder. I see that now. Natalie blinked back tears. Jacob simply smiled and said, Thank you, sir. And that was it. No big apology. No dramatic scene. Just quiet recognition. Their daughter was born in the spring. They named her Hope. As she grew, she'd spend her afternoons in the workshop, sitting on sawdust-covered stools while Jacob measured planks. He taught her how to use a hammer before she learned multiplication. Natalie would bring snacks and paperwork and watch them with quiet contentment. One day, when Hope was about 5, she asked, Mommy, why do people say Daddy used to be a janitor, like it's bad? Natalie knelt down beside her and said, Because. They didn't understand what it meant. They didn't know it takes strength to clean up other people's messes, that it takes dignity to work hard without applause. But Daddy knew, and I knew. Hope nodded slowly. Then I want to be like Daddy. Natalie kissed her forehead. You already are. Years passed. The world changed. People moved. Trends shifted. But the story of Natalie and Jacob stayed with those who knew them. At every speaking engagement, Natalie attended. Every startup she mentored. She'd begin her story not with her degree, but with Jacob. She'd say, I married a janitor, and he built our life one piece at a time. People listened differently when she said that. They leaned in, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. One evening, Natalie opened her laptop and scrolled through an old email inbox she hadn't touched in years. Among the spam and newsletters, she found an old message from a former coworker. It had been sent right after she announced her engagement. You'll regret this, Natalie. You're too smart to throw your life away. She smiled, closed the tab, and walked into the workshop. Jacob was building a toy box for Hope's room. She wrapped her arms around him from behind and whispered, Remember when they laughed? He nodded, chuckling loudly. She kissed his cheek. They're not laughing anymore.